What do your customers think about routing? They don't. They don't. It's commoditized. It's commoditized. Routing has been commoditized for many years. In the 1990s, it was a great time to be because routing was kind of unique, and I actually did job hopping in the 90s. I was really good at that OSPF. I was more than competent with OSPF, and I actually job hopped to do nothing but I would take a job here and somebody would offer me a few more $1,000s here to work on this OSPF network, and I did exactly that for a period in the 90s because it was important to the business leaders then. There are people coming out of college, junior colleges, even high schools now, because this is not rocket science. There were no books back then. There were no manuals and all that. We were writing them as we went on how to do these big networks because it was a great time to be in the industry. But today it's commoditized. Routing in itself is commoditized in a lot of ways. And if you're just selling the value of moving a packet or frame from one interface to the other, you're not going to bring any value at all. You're lowest to the bottom. So it's commoditized. It must address business needs. God, if I could write. It must address business needs. Could you, as salespeople, knowing this, be able to use that to talk about addressing business needs outside of IT? I think you could. I think you could start talking about consolidation. You know, there's a lot of consolidation and this, that, and the other, consolidation of vendors, consolidation of this, that, and the other. A great place to be able to do this. If you talk about speed of deployment, absolutely. OpEx, absolutely. All the different things that you'd want to do there, right? So Cisco is the market leader. And not just last year or the last 2 years, 15 plus years we've been the market leader for routing. You know, there's no way, shape, or form. We might go as low as upper 60% in some routing categories. We're up in the 80s in other at the branch. And again, for 15 years, we've had great competition. We still have good competition in routing. But guess what? Customers still come back to us. And how do we keep our edge? Innovation. We built routers. We started in switching and everything, and then we started helping service providers, that IP core. MPLS was a Cisco innovation for the service providers to be able to use the IP core to resell the same bandwidth over and over but give guaranteed service. It helped us on the enterprise side, our commercial side and all that, but it also helped the service providers retain that revenue stream that they need to retain. The innovation. The ISR G2, certainly an intersection point. Our ASR routers, being able to provide additional services in hardware, with our special processors and our special hardware to be able to do these things with no latency and very, very minimal cost to the customer to be able to deploy these services in a very scalable solution. If I all of a sudden want to outsource and do all this, I can certainly turn that on at a whim. Service and support. It's certainly a strength of Cisco along the way. Cisco's, there's been a lot of stories of, let me give you a specific case that happened with me. I was an SE and I was stationed in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. Along around the holidays one year, there was an SE who had a pretty large account, and the customer was cutting over from some older 7500 series routers to some 7200 series routers. Was doing a swap. And they were doing it during some downtime that they had and all that, but it was during the holidays, and the SE who owned that account was gone. He was on vacation, out of town, whatever it was. And we've all heard about cap cases. Cap cases, right? Well, this customer tried to make the cutover, and it didn't work. They had some issues with it, so they failed out of the cutover and everything, and it went up. It eventually, because it was a pretty important customer, it became a cap case. And of course, the SC's got to be on site for that. So they called me up. So I had to drive several hours, go to the customer site. By the time I'd already driven there, Cisco had already shipped them 5 other routers. They were setting, we didn't know if it was our product. The cutover didn't work. Customers was complaining. It became an issue for Cisco. They sent me there. Now here I go, I walk in there and I don't know this customer from anybody. I walk in, hey, I'm Eddie, I'm with Cisco and I want to help you. So we go through, so the next night they decided to do the cutover again. We looked at their plan, we reanalyzed it. Everything looked good to me, everything was cool. We start going through the cutover again, we're moving cables, we're doing this, that, and the other. Same thing happens. Customer looks over at me and says, I'm not going out on my dock and get those new things. I can't believe that all this problem that we're having and everything. And I just looked at it. It didn't make sense to me. The product was doing what it was supposed to do. It just didn't make sense to me. And it ended up being, after about 30 minutes, we were 15 minutes from failing out of this again, and I did not want to have to deal with what was going to happen then. And I was working with one of their lead engineers, and we had a 100 megabit Ethernet connection cable. When we plugged it in, it just wasn't working. And we're looking at the device. I'm looking at this router. I don't see anything wrong. And the guy looked at me and he says, I am sick of this. And he was throwing a fit. And I just happened to look up. And I said, where'd that cable come from? I made that cable. I said, you did? He says, yeah. He says, you know, it was probably maybe a 22-foot run of cable. And I said, you're going to not like what I'm about to say. Do you have about a 25-foot Ethernet cable? And he said, yeah. I said, let's get it. Click, click, everything came up. Cisco had already shipped them a couple of $100,000 worth of routers sitting on their dock ready because we think it might be our problem. It was a cable issue. It was a cable issue. Needless to say, I was glad that I got to go out there and enjoy the holidays with my family. Better yet, I liked the little bit of egg on that guy's face because, man, he was giving me a hard time because I was the only guy in 10 square miles who ever knew what a Cisco badge looked like. Cisco's service and support, man, we will go to great lengths. There's been many, many times that Cisco will go to great lengths to fix a customer solution when their network's down. A lot of times it's themselves shooting themselves in the foot. But we'll try to fix it for them. So our service and support is not. And again, I think Cisco Capital. The Cisco Capital is a great solution. Lease these things. Lease these things. I fully believe in that solution. And again, a lot of our partners have their own solution to lease and everything, but Cisco's Capital is certainly designed to get it out the door.
And I currently have a deal with Mobile Mini, 101 locations, where we're doing Cisco Capital for all the routers and we're leasing it all.
Yeah.
And, you know, these solutions will run, the solution will work for them 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah.
But there's so many options and it just gives you a wealth of things that you can work with. And
absolutely.
It's really been a great, they've got the money, but they're willing to with what we can finance. And it's impressive, guys. When he says Cisco Capital, he's not kidding. It's going to be really good.
And the good part about that is you don't have to be a financial whiz or anything. These capital people will come in and talk to your customer. I know several of them. By the way, just a little story about that. Do you know that you're leasing buses in Texas? Yeah. Your Cisco employees, you're leasing buses in Texas. School system in Texas wanted to have a Cisco solution, but they didn't have the money for it. They had all this E-rate money, this government-funded money, and it was in one pile, but the pile wasn't big enough. And of course, you can't lease on E-rate. And they were saying, we want the solution, we'd like to lease, but we can't do that. Well, they brought in a Cisco Capital person. They walked in and had the discussion. There was value there. And they said, well, what do you have here? You got money over here? Yeah, but that's set aside for buses. That's set aside for school buses. We have to have school buses. Could you move that money over here and get the Cisco solution? Absolutely. But what are we going to do about buses? Well, we'll lease your buses. So we lease buses. We lease buses. Huh? It's in Texas somewhere, yeah. I know
I just brought that up to Michael. If we were on a call with my came
Yeah.
and told that same story. I guess I heard it from you. That
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, we lease buses.
Yeah, we actually lease buses. Yeah, we are very flexible, and again, we're not the last, if somebody's got bad credit and everything, we don't want to do that. But what we want to do is we want to be innovative, and the people that we bring in there, they get paid on product going out the door. They don't get paid on just what's leased. They get paid on total product. With leasing, what do you get? You get more product. You get 30% more product out the door if you do a lease. And you also get your customer on a 3-year cycle, right? A 3-year cycle. And with the cost of technology going down, the same price that they pay long term, I'll get more technology or even be able to decrease that over time. And so there's a lot of benefits. And again, Cisco Capital has a lot of people who can go in there and have those discussions, which I certainly couldn't have. I can barely control my wife's spending and balance my checkbook, but these people are very, very good.
The CFO lit up when we had that dialogue.
Yeah.
Because he was like, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
What if we did this? And the CFO was, oh.
Yeah. And I suggest that you don't make it a last resort. I think it's part of a business process, right? It's more of a.
We were right up front with it.
We don't want to make a diving catch out of this lease. You don't try to make a diving catch with it. You want to position it up front as the solution. And again, it kind of gets that price thing out of the way a little bit more and all this, that, and the other, where they're not nickel and diming you at the end. So it's really a good solution. I think it's a win-win-win all the way across the board. So again, use it as you would see fit. You own your own business and stuff. But I certainly talk to my customers up front about that. Every time I go in and consult, there's certain things I talk about. I talk about how you feel about leasing infrastructure, real infrastructure, right? And it's interesting conversations you can have. Interesting conversations about what they want, what they can afford, and how you can maybe even accelerate their need for it. So that's the routing section. That's the routing section.